You can join us live for our next BookFunnel webinar. Check out the link in the description for more details. We hope to see you there.
Of course, in this workshop, we're going to be talking about automating your ARC team or your review team. This is honestly something that I've wanted to discuss for quite some time when it comes to BookFunnel. This has been an idea I've been brewing on, something I've implemented myself. And so today, while this is a workshop, I do want to go through a few things. I felt like presenting some of this information visually for some people would be helpful to kind of digest the idea. And then I'll show you some of the stuff on the BookFunnel dashboard. I'm also going to be showing some stuff in MailerLite today. I'm showing MailerLite not because like we have favoritism, In fact, if you were to poll everybody at BookFunnel, like all of the authors at BookFunnel and everybody, we would all tell you our favorite mailing list service was something different, right? Right? We don't have like a corporate sponsorship or deal or anything like that with any mailing list service. It's nothing like that. I just happen to use MailerLite myself for my own author mailing list, and so it's easy for me to show you that. But a lot of the things I'm going to show you there can be replicated in MailChimp and ConvertKit in whatever system you're using. You might have to do a little tweaking here and there, but I think the gist of what I'm going to show you today is going to be pretty much the same. Right. Joining me today is Kelly, one of our other author support specialists. She will be in the Zoom chat with you all, keeping tabs there. I don't know how many questions we'll have as they come along, but if you do have questions, you can put those in the chat. So just put those in there, and I'll go through those at the end. I'll be waiting to look at those. So I'm not going to be looking at those in the middle of the session as we're going along. Just keep that in mind. But I will get to those questions at the end. We'll have some time for Q&A. I've got a lot of information packed in here. So there will be a replay link that goes out. So if we go through this whole thing once live and you're like, I absorbed 30% of it, you go back and watch it again. There's a lot of detail packed in here. So I do want to mention that it may be something that you want to go back and kind of rewatch and go over in detail, but hopefully this will at least give you kind of a primer for what I'm talking about here, about automating your ARC team. So here's what we're going to cover today. So first, I want to talk about why building a team is so hard, building an ARC team, because it is hard. And that's why we want to automate it, right? Because it would be so much easier if it just kind of happened automatically in the background and you didn't have to worry about it. So we're going to touch on that for a little bit at first, to kind of also explain why I'm setting up all these email automations and using BookFunnel in these specific ways and doing all this stuff. To some of you, it may seem like overkill. And that's totally fine. In fact, you might find that you might not want to use this entire automated sequence. You might just want to use little pieces of it, and that's totally fine too. We're going to talk about some things that you can and cannot automate when we're dealing with this. Because we're using BookFunnel, we're using your mailing list service, but there's some things that kind of, they just require the good old eyeballs sometimes, or you've got to do some things yourself. So we will talk a little bit about that to kind of set some expectations. Then I want to get into the nuts and bolts and spell out for you everything that you're going to need. And then I have a nice visual diagram. At least I think it's nice. I spent some time on it. So hopefully, only compliments in the Zoom chat, right? No. I think it kind of clearly shows visually how this whole thing works. So if you're a visual learner like myself, that'll probably be helpful for you at that point. We'll also talk about some other applications and other ways that you could use this before we then go to the dashboard and I show you some things there. And of course, we'll get to some Q&A. So we got a lot to get to. And like I said, we're running a couple minutes behind, so let's just dive in. So why is building an ARC team so hard? That is me there in the background, all frustrated about building an ARC team, right? Hopefully not you. So obviously building an ARC team, it's one of the most effective ways to generate buzz and early reviews. But if we're just talking about a review team in general too, not just strictly speaking, an ARC team, it's a way for you to continue getting reviews on previous releases. I want to talk really today about the idea of having an entire ARC sequence for people who are like onboarding. You're onboarding them onto your review team, right? Because maybe you have a new release in your series coming up and it's like book five and you want to give out ARCs, but you got people who are like, I haven't even read book one yet. I just got your reader magnet. How can we onboard them through a sequence so that we're building that team, but we're also sorting through them and knowing like, okay, who's actually writing the reviews and following through, because those are the people that we would want to prioritize for ARCs. So obviously recruitment takes time, and finding reliable readers who actually leave reviews can be very difficult. So this is the main problem that you're going to be facing. And generally, I always tell people it is a numbers game. You will give out 100 copies of your ARC and you will get a handful of reviews, maybe. In a right, that would be good. That would be some good results. So, that is just kind of the way it is. But it's those readers who are reliable that we want to kind of zero in on. We want to find a way to filter them out. And then we got to keep track of readers. So who downloaded, who left a review, who should get future ARCs, or if maybe we're wanting people to kind of go through a sequence where, hey, we're going to give them book one to review, and then if they write the review, yeah, I'll give you book two, right? That sort of thing. Maybe we want people to kind of go through that whole process, keeping track of that, especially like if you're doing it like the old-fashioned way on pen and paper. Good luck, right? And then follow-ups are tedious. All right, sending reminders, tracking reviews manually, it's all time consuming. Of course, BookFunnel Certified Mail does make this easier. And for those of you who've used BookFunnel Certified Mail, it's not going to be, even though it is our dedicated ARC delivery feature, it's not going to be front and center today. But if you do currently use it, you can actually work it into this process in a sort of modified way. We'll get to that when we talk about some of the other applications at the end. So that does make this process easier, but there's also other tools that we can use to make that easier. We also want to manage expectations. So readers may not follow through on instructions, right? Or they might not provide reviews on a timely manner. There's also things like they might go to review on Amazon and Amazon tells them they can't submit a review and all that stuff. There's lots of information that we may want to communicate to them. And if you are, depending on how you are managing your ARC team, it's a lot of information you have to keep providing these ARC readers every time you send out new ARCs, right? And then there's the aspect of leaks and privacy. So not everybody's concerned about this necessarily, but you may want to ensure that your book doesn't get shared out in the open prior to release. So there's some security aspects of it. We'll touch on those a little bit as well. It's maybe not directly related to the automation aspect of it, but there are some ways that we can control for that. So we will touch on that here briefly. And so automating is going to solve most of these problems, and it's going to make your ARC process more efficient. So let's go ahead and dive in here. What can we and can't we automate, right? So let's go over first the things that we can automate, right? Reader sign up and book delivery using landing pages and or certified mail. And I'm going to actually recommend that you use a BookFunnel email collection page to get people to sign up for your review team, right? And use that in a specific way. We'll touch on that here in a moment, right? But using a BookFunnel landing page makes it really easy to both get them to sign up for a list, which could be your review team list, and get a book, which would be the ARC, all at once. So I recommend that for this method. Certified mail, though, can be great for just delivering ARCs. And we'll talk about how you would use that a little bit later. So email follow-ups and review reminders, we can automate those. Certified mail does let you do that, but you can also use your own mailing list service tools, right? Typically, this would be an email automation. So you draft up those emails once, you set up the rules for the automation. We're going to be relying on that heavily for this method. so that given certain conditions, they get this email, and that email maybe includes this information, or it includes this specific link, or what have you. We can automate all that stuff, right? We can have all that automated, right? So step one, so I don't actually, okay, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, right? But we can automate that part of it. I'm going to connect all these dots together here in a little bit. My brain is already trying to map it out for you. Right, so we can do some aspects of tracking reader engagement as well, if you're using certified mail and restricted books, but there's some other ways that you can do this too, even just by making sure you include links at the end of your arcs for them to submit a review, and make sure you use a link that you can track clicks on. There's some of that we can do also with landing pages, specifically landing pages you would create using your mailing list service. And then we want to also remove inactive ARC readers from this team, right? Somebody who didn't follow through on the review. It's not that we necessarily want to write them off forever, right? But we want to remove them from that initial group. And our mailing list service tools are going to help us do that. We want to send ARCs with watermarked files for security. Any of BookFunnel's secure delivery options are going to do that, whether it's landing pages, certified mail, bulk delivery. Those files will be watermarked for security reasons. So that is done automatically. We don't need to worry about that aspect of things. And then collecting review links. We can automate that using our mailing list service tools. Now, on this note, or on this point here, I know there are other services out there that do some of these things as well. But and I'm not going to drop any names because I'm not here to throw any shade on these other services that collect and manage review links and that sort of thing. If that works for you, great. But maybe you want to keep everything in house and you just want to manage it yourself, and you already have a mailing list and you already have BookFunnel, right? And so maybe you don't want to fuss with another service, right? You can do certain aspects of collecting review links using your mailing list service tools, and that's one thing I'm going to be showing you how to do today. And then optionally sending reviewers the next book after the receipt of the previous review. We would use our mailing list service to do this, another email automation with specific triggers, and BookFunnel restricted pages are what I recommend using the delivery aspect for, because you can control access to that book. To the subsequent book in the series, right? So with this method, it's not just for your latest release. You're building a team, and you're going to be, you can even have them go through every book in your series, right? Maybe you have a 5-book series and you want people, before they get your latest arc, you want them to have reviewed every book in the series. You can absolutely do that with this. You don't have to, but you can. And that way you're getting reviews on your entire series all the way through, which is obviously going to be of great benefit if you go that route. So what can't we automate it? What are we not able to automate? So some of these things have to be handled manually. So verifying review links with this method, if you want to like verify that the submitted link was legitimately an actual review and it's actually live on Amazon or what have you, you're going to need to use the good old, as we call it in science fiction, the Mark I eyeball, right? Right, which is you're going to need to look at the review link yourself and make sure that, okay, this is a legitimate review. For this method, some of that is required, but you don't have to like necessarily do it every time a review link is submitted. You can just like check on it like once a week or once a month and make sure that everybody's being honest, right? So that is something I do want to point out, right? Controlling where readers post reviews. Obviously, they have options. So if your books are available on Amazon and other platforms, we can't really restrict that and control, hey, I only want you to review here. With this method, you're going to be generally going to want to be more open. Say you can review, like let's say your books are in KU, you can review on Amazon or Goodreads. That's generally what I recommend. And I do recommend you tell your readers to review you on Goodreads. I recommend you do it. And I know Goodreads is a hot button issue, but your own ARC team, your own review team, you want to be sending them to Goodreads, because the built-in audience of Goodreads, the readers who just read books and review them on Goodreads on their own, they tend to rate books lower than readers on Amazon do. And so you want to be sending your own ARC readers who are like your raving mad fans who love everything that you write. You want to be sending them to Goodreads to help balance that out a little bit, right? This is a point of controversy in self-publishing to some degree because, yeah, the readers on Goodreads, their idea of what a five-star book is different than what somebody would typically think, and so they tend to review books lower or rate books lower than readers on Amazon. However, your ratings on Goodreads will show up on Amazon. Amazon owns Goodreads. So if you didn't know that, that's why that's a concern. So yes, on that note, make sure you're sending them to Goodreads as well. Handling individual reader issues, so things like missed emails, technical problems, things like that. For example, somebody goes to review on Amazon and they're like, they won't let me leave a review. Well, one of the reasons might be because Amazon requires you to have spent $50 on their site within the last calendar year before you can write reviews for products. We can include some of that information somewhere, but ultimately, if that reader like reaches out to you, you're going to have to reply to them and say, right, this is what's going on, or hey, you missed this email. You're going to have to do some aspects of that manually. Having a robust email automation can help reduce that, though, right? So main thing here is that automation is going to help with onboarding people onto your team. And that's what I want you to think of this as. We're onboarding people onto your review team. We're going to track their behavior. We're going to follow up with them. But there's some personal engagement that you're going to have to still do. And honestly, it does still matter and is impactful. And I have some recommendations for that. Maybe we can get to here toward the end. So here's all the things you need to automate your ARC team. This is a long list because I'm going to detail every individual piece of this machine. So I'm going to maybe give a few moments to pause here so you can see, or if you want to take screenshots, I will pause before I go to the next list of things and you can take a screenshot of this and do that. That might be simpler, but if you do it the old-fashioned way and you're taking notes, by all means. So we need, for this method, what I call a review magnet. I've talked about this before in our 5 reader magnets that every author needs. A review magnet is just a book that you're going to give away for free, that you're going to ask readers to review. It can be an existing reader magnet, or it can be bonus content written expressly for this purpose. Either way, you can do this with an existing reader magnet just fine. But it is a review magnet because we're giving it away for free, but as we give it away, we're telling people we're requesting a review. We might be even informing them by, hey, by claiming this book, you're going to be joining my review team. And I'm going to follow up with you about a review. Depending on how, right, heavy, I don't want to say heavy-handed, but how direct you want to be about it. You can be very kind of loosey-goosey. In fact, you maybe don't even have to tell them that it is for the purpose of a review. You can just follow up with them after the fact and ask them to leave a review. But we're going to keep track of who has left a review. And so the review magnet is the way of getting them started on this sequence, right? It's the initial, it's what initiates the whole sequence. And we want to start with a review magnet because it's something we want to just give away. And we don't really care if they write a review for it or not. If they do, great. We're playing a numbers game, remember? So I'm going to give away hundreds and hundreds of copies of this review magnet, knowing that only a handful of people for each of those 100 are actually going to write a review, but I'm going to then keep track of those readers. And they're going to stay on that review team, and I'm going to give them new books to review, or they're going to get my latest ARC because I know they follow through. So instead of doing this process with your latest release, you're doing it with the review magnet instead. So you're not devaluing your latest ARC release, that you're restricting to just your team of dedicated reviewers who you know will follow through. It can take some time to get to that point, right? but that's why I suggest you use what I call a review magnet. So then we need layered lists and or groups. Different mailing list services refer to them differently. Like on MailerLite, they're called groups. For this method, you need lists and groups for each book in your ARC sequence so that readers can be moved from one group to the next as they submit their reviews. So they'll be submitting their reviews, and we can automatically, once they submit a review, add them to the next group. And by being added to that group, that can trigger another email automation sequence, right? And that can send them the link to the next book and a whole sequence that then follows up with them, reminds them, and then asks them to submit their review. And then we just connect them all in a daisy chain style fashion, right? Real simple, right? 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 Obviously, the more books you have that you want people to go through, the more complex this is going to become. And you may not want to do it that way. You might want to just keep things simple, and that's fine. But you will need some groups to be able to move readers around, or lists to move readers around and say, okay, these are the people who have received the review magnet. Once they submit a review, they go into another group because I want them to be treated differently. I want them to get a different email automation sequence, right? Or I want that to trigger some sort of event, some sort of automation. Or I want them and only them to have access to this restricted BookFunnel landing page to download the next book, right? So lists and groups will be necessary. And I say this because when you sit down to set this whole thing up, you're just going to want to create them all at once, right? You're going to want to sit down and create all the groups or create all the lists. The email automations, right? So, for example, for your review magnet, you're going to probably want to have a reminder, right? And a follow-up. So this reminder just says like, hey, just reminding you to download the book and read it, right? And maybe mention some, depending on how direct you're being about the review aspect of things, you can also be direct there. Following up with them a little while later, maybe a few weeks after they've received the book, right? This is a process that sometimes takes a little bit of time. And this is ultimately going to be used to send them the review submission request and also links to subsequent ARCs or review copies in this whole sequence. Now, the good news is this, is that once you've created one of these email automations, which is about 3 to 4, maybe 5 emails at most, you can duplicate it and then just edit the details if you're wanting to have them go through a sequence of, okay, they got the review magnet, they reviewed it, then they get book one, then they review it, then they get book two, then they review it, right? If you're going to do that whole thing, you can just duplicate these automations and then change the rules. That's a tricky part you got to keep track of, and then change the details of those emails, like, it's referring to this book instead of that book, that sort of thing. But once you've done it once, the majority of the work is done. And then a review submission form. Well, you'll need one of these for each book in your ARC sequence so that we can collect review links from readers. Right? We need a form that we've created to collect a link for each of those. Typically, you can use your mailing list service to create a landing page that will do this for us. So I'm going to pause here so you guys can take a screenshot of this if you want to, because then we got like 4 more things on this list that we'll get to. So in addition to that, custom fields and tags. Custom fields are really the bare minimum that we need. Tags, uh, depending on your mailing list service, they might use that terminology. This is where the reader's review link is going to be stored, is in a custom field. Particularly in MailerLite. If you're not using MailerLite, you can still do the same kind of thing. Custom fields are pretty universal, right? But we need to store that review link somewhere, and ideally we'd like to store it on our mailing list service. That means when I look up that subscriber, I can see in their subscriber details every custom field that I've created for them. And that means I can see just at a glance for that subscriber every review they've submitted for each book in the sequence. So if I have 5 books in the sequence, I need 5 custom fields. And the naming of these fields is pretty obvious. Book 1 review link, Book 2 review link, Book 3 review link, right? Or the name of the book or whatever it happens to be, so that you know what it is that that review link is for at a glance. When a reader goes to the submission form, they put in their email to verify themselves. They copy and paste their review link into that field. That field is connected to this custom field. And so when they submit through that form, that's how the data gets added. They've already written the review. This is them submitting it. This part is optional if you don't want to fuss with it. Really, if you just want to have a way to follow up with people and you're not really worried about keeping track of everybody or, that sort of thing, being really, tight gripped on it, it's optional. So you don't have to fuss with it, but it is really nice to be able to like just look at a whole list of readers and have all those review links there and see, okay, I can just see visually who has reviewed and who has not. Then the link verification aspect of it. There's some amount of verification that you're going to need to do. You can manually verify, again, mark one eyeball, just go in and check. Or you can trust your readers and keep tabs on submitted review links periodically. That's what I recommend you do. That's what I recommend you do, is just periodically keep tabs on this. Because we actually don't have a mechanism within your mailing list service to know that the link that they shared was 100% actually a link to their review, right? Talk about that here in a little bit, but it's not likely that readers are going to try to game the system in this regard. And there's some fail safes too, right? But if you check in on this periodically, maybe once a month even, just to make sure that those review links are legit, right? That they're actually real, you should be fine. If you find somebody that submitted a review link that wasn't legit, or they put in some gobbledygook that wasn't actually their review link, you can just ignore them, right? And then we need a goodbye automation, a way to separate them out. So to kind of clean the list. So those who didn't open, didn't click, didn't submit a review, we need an automation that handles them. And this doesn't necessarily even have to send them an email if we don't want to. It just kicks them out of the group, maybe puts them in a waiting area for a while. We're not going to send them any emails about reviews for a while. We're going to let them cool off a little bit. There's a number of ways that we can do that, or we can just, we could even send them an email that's just like, hey, um, I'm, you didn't write a review for this book. How dare you? Okay, no, we don't want, we don't generally want to be like that, but maybe just as a way of saying, hey, if you still want to write a review, you can. Here's the link to submit it, but I'm not going to continue following up with you. It's up to you at this point. An automation for that is great. And then restricted pages. For this method specifically, I do recommend using BookFunnel restricted landing pages. If you do not have access to this feature because you don't have direct integration with your mailing list on BookFunnel, that's totally fine. You can use BookFunnel email sign-up pages. It can work that way. Just know that an email sign-up page, that link can be shared. So if you're not really worried about somebody sharing it, don't worry about it. But a restricted page is generally useful for this. It also is another, especially for those of you on Amazon. Maybe your books are in KU. You still want to get reviews on the books that you have in KU. This is a gray area with Amazon. But if you're using a restricted landing page that requires them to verify their email first, generally that is going to put you in a little better spot in terms of potentially getting in trouble with the Zon on this issue. Right? Amazon, unfortunately, has sent lots of mixed signals in this regard about whether or not review copies are or are not okay. So I recommend using a restricted page because that person then has to verify their email. What that means is that if that link somehow gets sent out and shared out there in the ether, and it does get reported to Amazon, and Amazon takes a look at it, and you've like made sure the verbiage on the page is very clear, and there's an email verification required, I think you're a little less likely to get in trouble in that respect, right? So go ahead and take a screenshot of this if you haven't already, and then we will continue on. We're going to get to some of the nuts and bolts here. This is where I'm going to show you kind of visually how this works. All right, so this is where the rubber meets the road. So let's go through this step by step. So our review magnet is the first step of the process. This review magnet we could share far and wide. If it is a dedicated piece of content, it can be in your newsletter. Put it in BookFunnel promos. Put it everywhere, just freely, right? This is not a book that you would have in KU. I wouldn't recommend that because you just want it to be out there for everybody to find. If it's an existing reader magnet, that's totally fine. You can use your existing ones even if you want to. We just then need to, at a later step, make sure that we have that connected to an automation sequence. We'll talk about that email sequence here in a moment. So this is the first step. This is what gets them on into that first group, right? That's our review team list, that first list. And you'll notice I have the number 1 there because that's the first list, right? However you want to name it, right? And so they've received that magnet. And so we put them on that list or in that group. So we have them separated, right? Once they're in that group, that is going to trigger that initial email automation we talked about. So ideally, if they've just joined our list, they should get a welcome email, right? Right. So they should get a welcome email for this. Like, hey, thanks for claiming your copy of this book, right? Maybe we want to provide some expectations on reviewing the book, whatever we want to include in there. There's multiple emails in this automation. So I don't want to gloss over too much, but I only have so much room on this page. So like a welcome email would be good. Then we would want to send a reminder, maybe a week later. Just be like, hey, just making sure that you got the book. If you had any trouble with it, contact BookFunnel support. It just as a reminder, here's where you can review it when you're ready. No big deal. In my own sequences, I always like to play it off. It's like, it's no big deal. Like, don't worry about it. Because if they just wanted a free book, pardon my French, I'm not going to come off as an asshole, right? Right? If they just wanted the free book, I'm not going to, I don't want to, agitate them further. What I want is the readers who are actually gung-ho about writing reviews to follow through. They're the ones I'm trying to find. Right? So I send a reminder, and then maybe another week later, I send a follow-up. It just says, hey, I hope you enjoyed the book. Have you left a review yet? If you haven't, here's the link to where you can go write a review now. And then if you have written a review, I'd love it if you'd share it with me. Submit it here. And that's where we're going to give them a link to a review submission form. We may even, in that email automation, want to include another follow-up email that's like, hey, here's where you submit your review. Right? This review submission form is usually going to be a landing page that we're going to put on our website, our mailing list service, a landing page we'll use with our mailing list service, but you could use a Google form if you really wanted to. There's ways to do that. Especially if you're going to be manually checking things, you could do that. And then we have to do some sort of verification. So this is manual or auto, depending on how you're doing it. In some cases, you're just going to, when they go to the submission form and they submit a link, you'll have another automation that will trigger. Excuse me. So you can have an automation in MailerLite. For example, one of the initial triggers of an automation in MailerLite can be a custom field data gets added for this subscriber. And that can then initiate adding them to a second group. That can initiate another email automation for the next book in our ARC sequence, right? And you'll see how we can then chain all of those together. You can also just collect all of the review links, and maybe once a month you go in and you take a look on your mailing list service, or if you're using a Google form, take a look at the Google form, see who's submitted review links. You've got their emails there. And then you manually do the next step of sending them the next book or adding them to the next list. You can do that as well. This here is also where we want to remove them if they didn't review. Right? So they get removed from this whole sequence. That's basically something that would be part of this original email automation, right? If it's been a certain amount of time and they meet these conditions, we're going to remove them from this whole sequence, and maybe we're going to add them to a specific group. Again, it depends on how strict you want to be about it. Maybe we send them one final email and we leave it at that, right? And maybe that's just fine, but we want to make sure that we don't continue bugging them and just sending them email after email after email, like, hey, review the book, because that gets annoying. And we also we're totally fine with them just being like, okay, you didn't review the book. I am not going to send you any further review copies until you do. Maybe you come along and you do review the book eventually. That's totally fine. But we need some way of either removing them or setting them aside so they don't get added to the next step of the sequence, which is now we're going to confirm their review. We're adding them to the next group. This can be done automatically. You have them submit their review link through the submission form. That automatically can add them to the next group. That can automatically initiate another email automation, and that can deliver them the link to the next book in the form of a BookFunnel restricted page, right? So there are a number of steps here, right? But to kind of do a quick overview, and I know there are going to be some questions, and I can go back to this slide for sure. We start with our review magnet. We're giving this out far and wide. We're giving it to everybody. We want everybody to download this review magnet. That gets them added to a list, right? So we keep everybody on a list. We have them organized. And then we have an email automation that's going to go out. It's going to send them a welcome email. We want to send them a reminder. Hey, make sure you got the book. If you need help, contact BookFunnel. We want to send them a follow-up or two. And in there, we want to include the review submission form. Those follow-ups, by the way, are where we're going to directly ask them to write a review and provide them links to go write a review on Amazon, Goodreads, etc. We include the review submission form there as well. And then they go through that filter, right? Maybe we just let them hang right there, right? But because they didn't review, they don't get added to this list. If they do review, we either manually or automatically add them to the next list, and that gives them the next book in the sequence. It also is going to trigger another email automation that is going to be identical to that first one, but we've changed the details, right? So that it's referring to the next book in the series, right? And it's providing them a submission form for that specific book, right? So there's a number of moving parts here. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. Again, I didn't want this to be too messy. I could have added a million other details. This could have been a really complex flow chart, but I felt like that would be maybe a little too overwhelming. But this is essentially how we would manage this whole process, right? So what are some other applications for this? What are some other ways we can use this or so forth? I want to mention these before we actually get to the dashboard and show you some things. So you can use a similar sequence for beta readers and proofreaders. Do the same sort of thing. Give away a beta reader copy, have them go through a sequence to give you some feedback. It's going to maybe look a little bit different in the sense that well, you will have new releases that you might want beta reader feedback on. But this could be a good way for you to maybe give away some sort of reader magnet again and ask for feedback like you would from a beta reader, see who follows through, and then, hey, now you know who to send your future beta reader copies to. Or if you need some proofreading, rely on your readers. You'll be surprised how many of your readers, how many of your subscribers are more than happy to read your book and provide feedback and even proofread it for you. Right. Right. So before you, I know if you're in the market for like a proofreader or an editor or that sort of thing to do line edits, simple edits and things like that, lean on your readers. There are some of them, they will surprise you, right? There's not a whole lot of them, right? They're kind of diamonds in the rough, but if you're always kind of searching for them, you'll find them. Right. This can also be used in tandem with certified mail. So if you prefer certified mail to handle like all the emails, right? The delivery email, If you prefer certified mail for the reminders and the follow-ups, you can continue using certified mail, no problem. Use that in place of that email automation, right? So you give out your review magnet, you collect everybody onto a mailing list, and you send them a certified mail campaign. They're going to be getting the same book again, not the end of the world. You can play it off as here's the link in case you need it, right? And you can send them the reminders and follow-ups through certified mail that way. And then on the subsequent steps, have them submit their reviews. You can collect them however you want. You can collect them through a form on through your mailing list service, what have you, or Google form, and then you can follow up later, send them another campaign to the people who actually did send the review. So you can use this in tandem with certified mail. Uh, I would recommend boosting recruitment with promos. Put that review magnet into BookFunnel promos and swaps. Put it out there far and wide. You want to get it out there in front of as many readers as possible because you want to push as many readers as possible through this whole filter to find the ones who are actually going to follow through. This doesn't really work if you don't do that aspect of this whole thing of pushing that review magnet out to people to initiate this whole sequence. The whole idea is to bring in 100 readers at a time, right? And then see who follows through and continue that process to keep pushing them through. And over time, you do this process over a year, and you'll have a strong list of readers who are actually going to follow through and review everything that you give them. And then you can also use restricted books to add a layer of security to this whole process. Restricted books allow you to essentially restrict readers to the BookFunnel library and Cloud Reader only. This means that they can't download the files themselves, right? So it's an option for those of you who are concerned about the security aspect of things. Okay, now we're running short on time. So I want to quickly go to the dashboard here and get to some of your questions because I know there's going to be plenty of them. And in fact, what I might do here, Kelly, if you can start. Howdy, Kelly.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I figure while I'm sharing, I'm switching and sharing the screen, maybe you can throw a few questions out there
Yeah.
just
Okay.
so that I can do them kind of at the same time. A little to some degree. Because I'm sure there's lots of questions and like, okay, this is Jack's crazy idea, but I'm sure there are plenty of people who are like trying to wrap their heads around it. I totally understand.
Okay, so we have Kristen had asked, can I add the review links manually since I'm on my third book and I haven't done this yet? So I think this was back when you were talking about your links.
Oh, Kelly, I think that issue with your audio is happening again. I
Oh,
don't
is it
know.
back?
This happened
Okay.
yesterday in our team meeting. I'm sorry, Kelly. I'm not trying to put you on the spot
No, no,
here.
no, you're good. You're good. Let me try and change out my phones. Sorry
But
about
yeah,
that.
no, so to answer the question here, if you're wanting to collect them manually, like any part of the process, if you prefer to do it manually, you can substitute that out. Absolutely. And really, it should, that whole flow chart, if there's some of those steps that like, you're like, yeah, I want to handle that aspect of it manually, you totally can. And that's not a problem at all. So here I'm showing you what is an ARC recruitment page. This is actually the details page. So this is a restricted landing page. So with a restricted landing page, or no, I'm sorry, this is not a restricted landing page. This is like what you would use for your review magnet. So this is my ARC recruitment page is what I'm calling it, or review team recruitment page. Here's the actual landing page, and I have some verbiage on here that is just an example. You may want to modify this a little bit, but so for example, I'm using something like your feedback matters to very clearly communicate, hey, I'm looking for feedback or I'm looking for a review. And I'm saying claim your review copy of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. On the button, I'm using the term join the team here, again, to imply you're joining my review team by claiming this copy. You might want to modify that verbiage. This is just an example. You might find that that verbiage is just like a little too strong. You don't want to like, maybe you don't want to have people explicitly join your team. You just want to follow up with them and see who reviews. Totally fine. And then here I'm including some other example verbiage. This is a review copy of this book. By claiming it, you will be added. This is should be a space there. Apologies to the author's review team. Reviews are appreciated, but not mandatory. If this book isn't for you, no worries. I always recommend including something like this because somebody's going to read your book and not like it, and you don't want them to write a review. So don't encourage them to, right? If they don't want to, if they don't like it, make it clear, hey, if it's not for you, you can drop it. It's no big deal. The author will be in touch with you soon. This is really important to follow up regarding your review. Some verbiage like this, customize this, make it your own, right? Or copy it. That's totally fine too. So this is what I would use for that first piece. This is an email collection page. So they submit their email and everything. Put this in promos, put it everywhere, right? Now, this is an example in MailerLite of a review submission form. This is some of the details here. So you notice I have this connected to a specific group. I have this group labeled book title review submitted. So when they submit their email to this form, along with their review link, they also get added to this group. That's an optional step, right? And the actual page itself, whoops, is right here. And so this is just how I've set it up. You can set it up in a different way. I've set it up with a 3-step process. So step 1, I'm telling them, hey, you need to write a review on Amazon or Goodreads. Here's where you can do that, right? Here are the links to go do that. I'm also communicating this information here about Amazon's requirements. You have to spend $50, right? You can still review on Goodreads. An account is required, but at no additional cost to you. You can customize this verbiage to your liking. These links will send them to Amazon or Goodreads to then write a review. And then step 2, submit your review. Once your review is written, please copy and paste a link to your review along with your information below. They put in their email. I also ask them sometimes for their Amazon or Goodreads username. This is optional. This is just another custom field that you would want to create. That way, when you go to look on Amazon, it's not going to be under their email. You can see like, oh, that's your username on Amazon. Cool. Now I can stalk you there, right? Okay. But now I can verify, oh yeah, that was you. You left that review and I can match it to you, right? Or your Goodreads username. And then here's where they put in their review link. And that review link, if I go back here, let me actually edit this page. I should be able to show you this. Of course, it's going to take its time, isn't it? Well, there's, oh, yep, here we go. So now if I look at this form, this section here in MailerLite, you should see if I go to the form settings, right? This review link here, I am actually, there we go. It's connected to this specific field, this Alice review link field. That is a custom field that I created. And so I select that field in the form settings, which means whatever they put in this field gets added. I know this is, I'm using the word field a lot. Whatever they put in this bar, whatever they submit here gets added to that custom field along with their subscriber data. Here's what that looks like. Here's a subscriber, right? Here's the groups they're on. They submitted their review. And now I can see their details. Here's their email, here's their name, and there's their review link right there. And if I had multiple fields for each book in my series, they would all be right here. I could see it all under their subscriber details. I'd see book 1, book 2, book 3, and their review links would be right there. And I could easily verify just by copying these and pasting these, I could see their reviews and verify them. So it stores all that data here under that subscriber. So then I can even sort through my subscribers and find who left reviews and so forth. Right? So that's the power of that custom field aspect of it. And again, to go back to this form, once they submit, right, that's what adds that to their, in fact, here, as we do this, I'll even demonstrate here. I'll put that information in here again. And There's the review. I'll go ahead and click submit. And now it's going to take me to a success page. So step 2 is complete. Thank you. And then, hey, would you like to review more? Here's a link to the next book, right? And this, I could do it right here, right away, or I could even delay this step. And maybe I want this to send them an email like a week later with the next book. But this is just a link to a BookFunnel restricted page. And that restricted page is connected to this group, which they joined when they submitted. Whoops. I need to go back a step. When they submitted, I think if I just reload, there we go. When they submitted their email to this form, because I have that connected to this page. Lots of moving parts, but that's how you go about doing it. All right, Kelly, more questions.
Yes.
We have a
Okay.
few minutes here.
All right. So Greta and M both had sort of the same question. I'm confused about why a reader would want to review the magnet or a free book. Don't we want reviews on books that are actually out on Amazon? And how does that work through the automation? And basically, M's question was very similar.
Yep. So yeah, yes, you do want reviews on your reader magnet as well. I highly recommend it. For starters, readers are going to review your reader magnet whether you like it or not on Goodreads. They're just going to do it. So whether or not you put it out there in the ether either, like if you put it on Amazon for free, I know some people do that with their reader magnets. Even if you don't, people are going to review it anyway. So the whole reason why we want to use the review magnet, again, to return to this, is that, again, I'm going to be pushing tons of readers through this whole sequence. I would rather give away 1,000 copies of my review magnet to find those 20, 25 readers who are going to be reliable for reviews than to, like, every time I have a release, give away 100, 200 copies of my latest book and cannibalize potentially sales. So that's one issue right there. In addition to that, if the other benefit of this is that reader magnet presumably ties in directly to book 1 in your series. If you write in a series, I'm going to push everybody through this sequence and then they're going to review book 1. And maybe I'm releasing book 5 next month, but they're going to go through this whole sequence and then they're going to review every book in the series. Is one way to also manage this, so that by the time they get to book 5, right, they've actually left reviews for each book in the series. Some people might be new to your series, right? And so if you just put out a call to action and say, hey, I've got a new release, who wants an art copy? Some of your readers are, now that's totally fine. That's something that I even recommend you do in some cases. But the one downside of it is you're going to have readers on your mailing list who just downloaded your reader magnet and they haven't even read book 1 yet. And how are they gonna? They're gonna jump into book 5 and oh, hey, they'll get a free copy of it. Are they going to review it? Who knows? So you have a way of it's a way of filtering them. The review on the reader magnet is nice. It's maybe kind of a vanity thing. You get to say, hey, this reader magnet is rated like 4.9 stars or whatever, right? People tend to review free stuff more highly than they do stuff they pay for. So you should expect that maybe to some extent. But in addition to that, the whole purpose of it is to filter them so that you're not giving away your books that are actually for sale to more readers than you would want to. So hopefully that answers that question. Next one, Kelly. We got time for
All right.
more.
Okay, so what would you do if you have several series that have been out for some time?
Okay, so that's a good question. Again, I like the idea of having one starting point. In theory, you could have a starting point for each series, and you could have separate automations for all of this. The problem that you run into is if somebody downloads a review magnet for one series and a review magnet for another series, And then the third one, like you have 3 series out and they download all those review magnets, they're getting tons of emails and requests to write a review when it's just too overwhelming. So the easiest way to manage that is make that review magnet available for only a limited time. This is actually something that you can do very easily if that review magnet is a specific piece of content that you created only for this purpose. Because you can say, hey, it's available for the next couple months. Grab it while you can, and then you take it away. Like if you have 3 series that you want people to go through this sequence on, just split it up, right? For 4 months, you're pushing the review magnet for series 1. And then for the next 4 months, that one's not available anymore. You've taken it down. Nobody can find it, but you're pushing the review magnet for the next series. There might wind up being some overlap with people who are finishing the last one. So you might want to put a gap in there. And so that's something to consider. But that's an easy way to do it if you're patient, right? Otherwise, what you can do, another way to do this is have one point of entry. So they get one review magnet. Did they follow through and write a review? Okay, great. And then from there, you can kind of give them options. So now it's like, well, hey, you reviewed this book. Thanks for that, by the way. If you're interested in maybe writing some more reviews for some other books, I have these 3 series. Here's book 1 in each of these. Pick one. And you can let them go kind of one at a time that way, but kind of let them feel it out on their own and go in whichever direction they want to go. Because you can be very open with this, or you can be very strict. You can keep everybody like in a straight line. You're going to go from this to this to this. You also have the option of making it more open and giving them access to more than one book at a time, giving them more open access to those arcs, as long as they followed through, right? Depending if they meet your criteria. Right. We are just past the top of the hour here. So Kelly, I can take one more question. If you've got one here for me.
All right. Yeah. So one other question, Cody was asking, how long do you estimate it takes to set this up, assuming that we've already have our mailing list already up and running and BookFunnel set up?
Yeah. So there is quite a bit of setup involved. Creating groups is easy. Creating tags is easy, or custom fields. That part's not very hard. The part that is tricky is like writing all the copy for these pages. Obviously, you have your landing pages. You may want to customize the text on here. In addition to that, the emails, they're going to go out in your automation sequences. I should have, unfortunately, didn't grab an example of those here, but those emails are as well. That's really going to be what takes the longest. And that whole email automation sequence and getting that right, this takes some time to set up. What I recommend you do, if you're kind of getting started with this, is just set up the initial automation sequence and set up everything for that review magnet. Maybe it is your existing reader magnet, because this is a new idea, and I don't suspect that a lot of you have like a dedicated review magnet, right, that you've created. Like, okay, take some time with that, but do this for your existing reader magnet and just maybe integrate it into part of your existing welcome sequence. Have an email that asks them to write a review and a way to keep track of it. And then you can start the snowball rolling, and then eventually you can write a dedicated review magnet, have a dedicated sequence for it. Once you've done a lot of that work and you've created the system for one book, it's easy to then duplicate those elements in your mailing list service. You can duplicate email automations. You can duplicate landing pages, that review submission form. You can duplicate all those things and then just change the details so that it's connected to a different book. So that part becomes easier after that point. But all right, folks, I know there's probably more questions in there that we weren't able to get to today. If you have additional questions, please feel free to send those our way, support@bookfunnel.com. I want to thank you all for attending today. A replay of this webinar is going to be uploaded to the BookFunnel YouTube channel. I try to get those up pretty quickly. I'm hoping to get them up by today. So you can go back, watch this, review over it and everything, and see like, oh, okay, yeah, This makes more sense here now that I've watched it 5 more times, right? I am also happy to answer additional questions on this whole thing and help you guys along the way. In fact, if you're trying to create this whole sequence, I would, if you're okay with it, maybe being featured on our YouTube channel, I'd love to do some follow-up videos where I go over authors' review sequences or arc sequences. I can give you some feedback in that context as well. It also helps me because we can create more content for the YouTube channel, which is always good. So if you're like diving into this thing and you're like, hey, yeah, I'd like to get some feedback on this, by all means, reach out, support@bookfunnel.com, and we'll help you out along the way, right? So it's not just one and done, like here's the webinar, go have fun. I'm definitely here to help if you have further questions.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.